June 1st, 1990, every phone line in the KISFM radio station is ringing, but only one call connects. Caller 102 claims a $30,000 Porsche 944. The station employees have no idea they've been robbed by a homeless hacker controlling their phone system from a cheap motel room. 3 years earlier, 17-year-old Kevin Poulsen sat in his bedroom with a borrowed Commodore 64, staring at 7 digits scrawled on a bulletin board system. The number is supposedly connected to ARPANET, the Pentagon's network linking military facilities across America. Most teenagers would have ignored it. Kevin dialed. The line connected with digital beeps. Text appeared on his screen. He was inside ARPANET. A teenager in his bedroom with basic equipment accessing Pentagon networks. His heart pounded. He explored directories, read file names, found research papers on network security. The irony wasn't lost on him, reading about security while bypassing it. That night changed everything. Kevin discovered something more intoxicating than any drug: the ability to go anywhere digitally while trapped physically in a working-class neighborhood. When he disconnected hours later, he knew his life had transformed. He needed a new identity for this digital world. He chose Dark Dante, mysterious, educated, dangerous. By 1988, Kevin had evolved from curious teenager to something far more dangerous. While other hackers focused on individual systems, he'd become obsessed with Pacific Bell, the telecommunications giant controlling the West Coast's entire phone infrastructure. If you could control Pacific Bell's switching systems, you could control reality itself. His education began in dumpsters. Late nights, digging through Pacific Bell's trash for technical manuals, employee directories, internal memos. Companies threw away gold, passwords on sticky notes, network diagrams, equipment lists. He'd emerge covered in garbage but holding documentation explaining exactly how Pacific Bell's systems worked. He also used war dialing, programs automatically dialing thousands of numbers looking for modems. Tedious, but effective. Eventually, he'd find a modem connected to Pacific Bell's internal network. From there, weeks mapping the system, understanding vulnerabilities, slipping deeper inside. The switching systems controlled everything: call routing, billing, number assignment. Kevin found he could listen to calls, reroute them, create phone numbers that didn't officially exist. He wasn't just hacking anymore. He was becoming an expert on infrastructure even Pacific Bell's engineers might not fully understand. If you're enjoying this video, consider subscribing to ArcSys for weekly cybercrime stories. Like, share, and drop a comment below from where you're watching from. The idea came in late 1989 when Kevin was broke. Again. Despite accessing America's most secure systems, he was barely scraping by. Evicted, living out of his car. The contradiction was eating at him. He could break into Pentagon networks but couldn't afford rent. That's when he heard about KIISFM's contest. The 102nd caller, when Prince's Kiss played, would win a Porsche 944 S2. Kevin understood radio contests were just another system to manipulate. Most people thought winning was luck. He knew better. Contests were phone systems, and he owned the phone systems. Planning took weeks. Using his Pacific Bell access, Kevin mapped KIIFM's phone infrastructure. 25 incoming lines terminating at a specific switch. If he controlled that switch, he controlled which calls connected. The technical challenge was elegant. Program the switching equipment to recognize his number and block everything else. He wrote custom code that would sit in the switch waiting for the contest. When hundreds called simultaneously, only his call would route through. To everyone else, busy signals. He also created a fake identity, Michael B. Peters, to claim the prize. He couldn't use his real name. He was already on law enforcement's radar. June 1st, 1990. Kevin sat in a motel room with his equipment spread across the bed. He tested his code, but risk remained. Prince's Kiss started at 9:47 a.m. Across Los Angeles, hundreds dialed KIIFM. Kevin's code executed perfectly, blocking every call except his. He dialed, counting. Caller 102, right on schedule. Michael Peters, he said,
I can't believe I won. He picked up the Porsche the next day, drove it briefly, then sold it for $25,000 cash. The money should have been life-changing, but the win did something more dangerous. It proved any system could be beaten. The Porsche hack made him an underground legend. But with fame came risk. Every hack left traces. Pacific Bell security teams were noticing anomalies. They didn't know who was responsible yet, but they were looking.
Kevin's most dangerous hack began at his day job. While working legitimately at SRI International, a research institute with military contracts, he discovered something that would escalate his criminal activity from phone pranks to national security threat. SRI's network connected to Maznet, a military computer network containing classified information. Kevin couldn't resist. In 1987, using access codes he'd obtained through a combination of social engineering and technical prowess, Kevin penetrated Maznet's security. What he found inside was far more sensitive than anything he'd accessed before. Classified Army information, military communications, strategic documents. He also discovered files related to the FBI's investigation of Ferdinand Marcos, the overthrown Philippine president. This wasn't teenage curiosity anymore, this was espionage. Kevin told himself he was just looking, never selling secrets or causing damage. But federal law didn't distinguish between looking and stealing when it came to classified military data. Every file he accessed, every document he read, every system he explored was another felony. The charges would eventually include espionage, one of the most serious accusations the government could level against a hacker. He also infiltrated Pacific Bell's facilities physically, not just digitally. Kevin had taught himself lockpicking specifically for this purpose. Late at night, he would break into Pacific Bell buildings in San Jose, walking past security like he belonged there. Inside, he'd steal technical manuals, password lists, and equipment documentation. The combination of physical and digital infiltration made him nearly impossible to stop through conventional security measures. During this period, Kevin discovered something even more valuable than classified files: the ability to wiretap phone lines. Using his deep access to Pacific Bell switching systems, he could listen to anyone's calls, record conversations, and intercept communications. Federal prosecutors would later allege he wiretapped FBI agents investigating other cases, giving him real-time intelligence about law enforcement activities. The wiretapping capability was intoxicating. Kevin could monitor his own case, listening to investigators discuss him, learning what evidence they had and what they were planning. It was the ultimate advantage, knowing exactly what your enemies knew about you. But it was also incredibly illegal, adding wiretapping charges to his growing list of federal crimes. By 1989, Kevin's activities had attracted attention from multiple federal agencies. The FBI was investigating his military network intrusions. The Secret Service was tracking his phone company hacks. Military investigators were concerned about classified information he'd accessed. Kevin was no longer just a clever hacker, he'd become a national security concern. The classified information he'd obtained, combined with his wiretapping capabilities and his infiltration of military networks, had transformed him from a local problem to a federal priority. Agencies that normally competed with each other were now coordinating, sharing information, building a comprehensive case that would result in one of the most serious hacking indictments of the decade.
October 19, 1989, a federal grand jury handed down a 19-count indictment. Conspiracy, computer fraud, wiretapping, embezzlement, theft of government property. The target was Kevin Lee Poulsen, also known as Dark Dante. He'd penetrated military networks, intercepted FBI communications, obtained the Soviet consulate's unlisted number during the Cold War's final years. Federal prosecutors had built their case for 2 years. Pacific Bell traced unauthorized access to Kevin's locations. SRI International, where he'd worked legitimately, discovered he'd used his access to probe military contractors. The FBI had monitored bulletin boards, connecting Dark Dante's fingerprints to Kevin's real identity. Kevin got a warning call. Federal agents were asking questions, showing his photo. He had hours before arrest. He grabbed his laptop, clothes, cash, and disappeared into LA's urban sprawl. Going underground in 1989 meant no security cameras everywhere, no cell phone tracking, no social media, but also no encrypted messaging, no cryptocurrency, no easy way to live off-grid. Kevin dyed his hair blonde, moved constantly between motels, paid cash for everything. When he needed money, he did small hacking jobs. Nothing big, just survival. The isolation was crushing. He couldn't contact family without risking wiretaps. Most hacker friends had disappeared, arrested, or scared away. He spent days alone reading technical manuals, monitoring news about his case. But Kevin made a critical mistake. He couldn't stop hacking. A smart fugitive would have gone completely dark. Kevin kept probing systems, accessing networks, leaving digital breadcrumbs. He told himself he was careful, using stolen accounts and proxies, but every connection was risk. Every system, another chance for investigators to narrow his location. The FBI's manhunt intensified throughout 1990. They interviewed everyone who'd known Kevin, pressured his family, monitored every digital space he might appear. They coordinated with Pacific Bell to flag suspicious activity matching his patterns. The fugitive who'd felt invincible was now the subject of one of the FBI's most intensive cyber manhunts.
February 1991. Kevin watched television when his face appeared on screen. NBC's Unsolved Mysteries was featuring his case to millions of viewers. Robert Stack's grave voice detailed his hacks, indictment, and the FBI's ongoing search. A tip line appeared, encouraging viewers to call. What happened next became hacker legend. The tip line mysteriously crashed. Calls couldn't connect. The system was flooded with interference. Underground forums buzzed that Dark Dante had hacked the show's phone lines from hiding, sabotaging the broadcast meant to catch him. Whether Kevin was actually responsible was never proven, but it perfectly captured his reputation. The publicity made everything worse. Before, he was a name in federal files. After the broadcast, millions could recognize him. Motel clerks, restaurant workers, anyone might identify him. He changed his appearance more dramatically, avoided public places even more carefully. Kevin's fugitive life had taken severe psychological toll. Over a year running, living in constant fear, money running out, exhausted, paranoid, isolated. The brilliant hacker who'd controlled phone systems was now a desperate fugitive barely holding together. But he still couldn't stop hacking. He was his addiction, his identity, the only thing making him feel powerful when completely powerless. He monitored law enforcement databases when accessible, reading reports about his own case. The information was both reassuring and terrifying. He knew what they knew, but they were getting closer. In April 1991, Kevin made the mistake fugitives always make. He established a pattern. He'd found a Van Nuys supermarket he felt comfortable visiting. Large enough to blend in, not too busy. He'd been there several times. What he didn't know was FBI agents had systematically shown his photo to businesses throughout LA. The supermarket manager had received his photo. April 15, 1991. When Kevin walked into the supermarket, security guards were ready. Store clerks recognized him and alerted security. Rather than waiting for FBI, security guards and employees moved in. They confronted Kevin, and when he tried leaving, they wrestled him to the ground. Kevin didn't resist once down. After 18 months, the chase ended, tackled by supermarket employees while shopping for groceries. When FBI agents arrived, Kevin was calm, almost relieved. Dark Dante's run was over.
The federal case was overwhelming. Prosecutors documented years of hacking, ARPANET intrusions, Pacific Bell infiltration, radio contest rigging, military and FBI network access. In June 1994, after 3 years in custody, Kevin pleaded guilty to 7 counts. The sentence? 5 years in federal prison, 3-year computer ban after release, and $56,000 restitution. Prison was devastating for someone whose entire identity was computers. Kevin was cut off during the period when the internet transformed from niche technology to world-changing force. While he sat in a cell, the World Wide Web exploded. Amazon, Yahoo, and Google were founded. Hacking evolved into sophisticated network intrusions and cybersecurity as an industry. The digital world he dominated was evolving without him. But prison gave Kevin something he needed: time to think about who he wanted to be. For years, he'd defined himself as Dark Dante,
the brilliant hacker who could break into anything. That identity brought underground fame, but also loneliness, poverty, imprisonment. In his cell, Kevin considered a different path. His skills were rare and valuable. Could he use them legally? Would society give a convicted hacker a second chance? Released in 1996, Kevin walked into a changed world. The internet was everywhere. Cybersecurity had become massive as companies needed protection from hackers like he'd been. But Kevin faced a cruel restriction: banned from computers or internet for 3 years. For someone with his skills, the ban was like telling a writer they couldn't read. He survived through writing and consulting, staying within restriction bounds while building cybersecurity and journalism connections. He wrote about hacking culture, explaining the underground world to mainstream audiences. His unique perspective, someone inside both criminal hacking and federal prison, made his insights valuable to companies and law enforcement. In 1999, when his ban expired, Kevin dove back into the digital world, but legally this time. He joined Security Focus as journalist, covering cybersecurity, then Wired News in 2005 as senior editor. He was uniquely positioned. He understood hackers' motivations because he'd been one, but understood legal boundaries because he'd paid for crossing them.
Kevin's redemption peaked in October 2006 with an investigation making national headlines. Using his old hacking skills for good, Kevin wrote a custom program to search MySpace profiles for registered sex offenders. The social networking site had exploded with teenagers, raising concerns about predators. Kevin's automated script compared MySpace information against sex offender registries, identifying hundreds of convicted offenders using the platform. But he didn't just publish the list. He focused on one disturbing case: 39-year-old Andrew Lubrano, father of 5, actively messaging underage boys with explicit content and building a victim network. Kevin's investigation, combining technical skills with traditional journalism, provided evidence leading to Lubrano's arrest at his Long Island home. The case generated massive media attention and forced MySpace to implement stricter age verification and monitoring policies. The contrast couldn't be starker. Kevin Poulsen, who'd once used hacking to steal Porsches and break into government systems, was now using those same skills to protect children from predators. The homeless hacker tackled in a supermarket had become an investigative journalist, whose work led to arrests and policy changes. Media celebrated the story as perfect redemption, the criminal who became a hero. Kevin's MySpace investigation spawned federal legislation and demonstrated reformed hackers could make enormous positive contributions. His career flourished as he wrote more investigations, covered major cybersecurity stories, and became a respected voice in digital privacy and security discussions. In 2010, he became contributing editor at Wired and later editor at the Daily Beast. Today, Kevin Poulsen's story stands as one of hacking history's most remarkable transformations. The kid who taught himself to code on a Commodore 64, who lived in his car while breaking into Pentagon networks, who spent 18 months as a fugitive and 5 years in prison, rebuilt his life completely. He proved hacking skills aren't inherently criminal. They're tools that can be used for harm or for good. The choice belongs to the person behind the keyboard. Dark Dante is gone, retired to history and legend, but Kevin Poulsen remains, a journalist and security expert whose past gives him unique insight into both the criminal mind and systems designed to stop them. His story isn't just about rise and fall, it's about redemption, second chances, and how skills that once made someone America's most wanted can eventually make them a force for good. The homeless genius who beat government systems learned the hardest way that true victory isn't about breaking into networks or winning Porsches. It's about choosing who you want to be and having the courage to change.